Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pert Near Outdoors podcast. This is Billy, and I think we're encroaching on 140. This might be 139. Maybe it's 140. I'll know in a few minutes when I actually put the album art together. But welcome, and thanks for joining us again this week. And going to give a quick intro here, run through a couple things, and then we'll dive right in. This week's guest is Brian Gottfried. Brian is many time repeating guest, a good friend of ours, and somebody who we have had on many times to talk about turkey hunting, deer hunting, and a lot of hunting related things. And that's what we wanted to do here. We hadn't caught up with Brian since the start of deer season, so myself and then Jimmy jumped on halfway through, and we chatted with Brian, heard about his deer season. And then in the second half, we jump into what he's up to now with his new gig, working at Ducks Unlimited. So pretty excited to share what he's got going on. It's in its infancy stages. He's only been there about 7 or 8 months. I think he started back early last fall is what he said. But it hasn't been too long, but he's trying to get his arms wrapped around everything that DU has going on, and he's really enjoying his job out there on the ground, working in the field, doing surveying and working on projects, which sounds pretty cool. And I know it's something that he's passionate about. So look forward to you hearing about what he has going on there. Hitting on a few things, just housekeeping items. We've got Shedfest is up and running. It's had a nice flurry of people purchasing their shirts over the weekend. So thank you to all of you who bought your shirts. The shirt is being finalized. I'm waiting on one more logo from one of the sponsors so we can get the shirt finalized and off to the printer. But that's all good news. That means we'll have shirts here in a short order, and I appreciate your patience on that. And it'll be much quicker than it was last year. So expect the shirts within the next few weeks is, I guess, my best estimate there. But if you haven't gotten yours yet, please head over to pertnearoutdoors.com and go to the store, and you can buy your Shedfest shirt, the second annual Shedfest. And we've got cool design on the front with an old retro style Chevy with a set of sheds on the hood. And then we've got some awesome prizes that we're going to be giving away this year. It's going to be a raffle rather than a contest. So we're trying to encourage people to understand that. Up at the outdoor show, I was, giving my little elevator pitch to people about Shedfest, and the common response I got was, "Well, I'm no good at shed hunting," and I guess I see my problem in my sales pitch right there, because that leaves me staggering. Shedfest is not just about shed hunting; it's about getting out there and spending some time in the outdoors, doing some scouting, spending some time on your property or public land, just out venturing around. You never know if you might stumble across a shed. That's a bonus for sure. But it's also a membership drive for the National Deer Association, which is really cool. I know we, with the 120 people, excuse me, roughly that we had last year, that was 120 memberships for the National Deer Association, many of which were first-time members. So I hope everybody sees the benefit in that, and the Deer Association is definitely an organization that all deer hunters should be aware of and should be supporting, as they're working hard in the background on a day-to-day basis to support whitetails and deer in general across the country. And it's important that we have a voice, and organizations like that need us as members to be engaged and to be involved. So here we are. Shedfest is your way to do that. Buy your shirt, $30. I think I ramble on at the beginning of the podcast about it, so I'm not going to say too much more, but I will keep talking about it until at least April 1st. That is when we are going to, that's when we're going to close up registration. So I'll keep talking about it. That's that. Had a great time at the outdoor show in Syracuse. Went up there Friday afternoon to help out in the booth with the HuntWorks. Those guys had an awesome display. I would argue to say one of the nicest setups in the whole facility there. So those of you that I got to meet, met a bunch of new people, which was really cool, just in one afternoon. I wish I could have spent more time there, but life is busy and I just can't do that. So it was awesome to meet those of you that I met there, and appreciate the Dunnigan family for giving not just myself, but also Dad spent a good portion of time there on Saturday, so giving us the opportunity to be part of your business and to help you guys out. We really enjoy it. It's an odd thing. We just love the Dunnigans. They're good people, and their business is growing arms and foots and legs, and we're happy to support that. Local business, local people, and just good, genuine people. And I love to see success, and I love to see businesses start and grow and flourish. So we are behind them, some bitches, and we're going to help them keep growing that business. Sure, there's something else I do want to say that that episode from last week has been dramatically better download-wise than any episode I've ever done by like thousands. So I'm quite amazed when I checked the stats last night on that. I was shocked when I saw how many downloads there have been on that episode. So interestingly, I've had no negative feedback. I've had lots of positive feedback. That always does make me nervous though, because I feel like there's got to be somebody out there that disagrees with the point of view of that podcast. So I will continue to put this out there that if there's anyone that that would like to discuss that, I would definitely embrace that discussion. I'd love to talk and understand what you've got to say about that topic of wind turbines in Lake Erie. And it seems like there's a lot of discussion going on. I'm enjoying being part of that group, the Citizens Against Wind Turbines in Lake Erie, that Facebook group. If you're on Facebook and it's something that you are interested in, I would encourage you to join that group. There's strength in numbers, and it's pretty wild when you get into that discussion and see all the things that are happening. I just think it's very important for us as sportsmen and women to be aware of what's going on. And this is not about fishing or hunting in particular, but it's you go into that group and all of the threads and the discussions and some of the articles are directly stuff that you can pull away and say, hey, that might affect my experience or my time out on the water. So check her out. That's my challenge to you. And man, I'm sure there's stuff. We're gonna keep going with the bullhorn. Bullhorn has been fun to use, and we're continuing to do our weekly shows on there. So if you don't have the Bullhorn app on your cell phone and would like to listen to the show live or call in to interact with us, feel free to do that. It's available on the App Store as well as in your Google Play Store. You can download that, and you can be a participant of the show. So once you download it, go in there and subscribe or follow. I think it's called follow. But one of the other subscriber follow Pert in Your Outdoors podcast, and when we go live, you will get notified that we're live, and you can tune right in on your cell phone and listen to the show live action. So it's a fun thing, and we're gonna probably be doing another episode this week, and then probably another one after that. So thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoy this discussion. Get out there, walk around in knee-deep snow, find some sheds, and keep feeding them. Brian. There we go. I think I can hear you.
You.
Okay.
You got me?
I got you like a whole bunch of times. Hold on, let me. What the hell? Okay, I got you. We did it. We're live.
Cool. All right.
We're live on time, and it's not a complete disaster. That's the first time in a long time.
It's amazing.
How are you, Brian?
Not bad, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I am good. It's Wednesday night, trying to get back on track with these live shows. I've dragged you through the mud pretty much the whole month of January, so thanks for sticking with me here.
You didn't drag me through the mud.
No hair off your backside?
No, not at all.
There's never a shortage of stuff to do, right?
That's right.
So we'll let a couple people get tuned in here. I think you've listened to or tuned in at least a couple times here to our live stuff, right? So you kind of know how this all works.
Yep.
Okay. Big Jim, I think, was going to try to jump on, but it sounds like his son was shocker is sick again, so he's dealing with that for bedtime.
Kids are just perpetually sick, man.
Yep. That will forever be the truest statement of mankind. But we were once told by, I feel like, a pretty wise person that they either get sick now or they get sick when they go to school. So you might as well have them get sick now before they go to school, because that complicates things even more. So we'll find out how true of a statement that is next year. We'll find that out.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to get sick no matter what. That's the reality of it, you know?
Yeah, they can't keep their hands to themselves or out of their orifices. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which I struggle with that at times too, but at least I know how to wash my hands and do it properly and sing happy birthday.
I gave up washing my hands.
You gave up?
Yep, that's my COVID protocol. I just figure a little dose every day from not washing my hands will keep me immune.
Yeah, just
that and the vaccine, but
yes, straight bacteria.
Everything else. Now I heard a dude on a podcast say that he's like, I eat one booger a day. That's how I know I'm going to stay safe.
Oh, I mean, if it works, it works. Yeah, don't.
That's right.
Yeah, see, look at this, Daniel Dunnigan. I'm drinking a little wine tonight, so there's this. I already thought that I was going to get ripped on for this. So I'm a social justice warrior now. So I drink fine wine and I wear stupid hats. That's what I do. But nice. Yeah, I'm an environmental justice warrior. Sorry.
Okay.
But we've had having refrigerator problems for the last, I shit you not, since like it was July. Our first issue was like mid-July. We remodeled our kitchen in 2017 and bought a nice Whirlpool. It was from the scratch and dent store in town, but it's brand new. It just had a dent in the back of it, And holy shit, dude, we've been having problems with this thing, and it just keeps freezing up like once a month. And of course, yesterday was the day. So today I ended up unplugging the damn thing, and it's upstairs thawing out. So I have no ice. I was gonna have bourbon with you, but I have no ice for my bourbon, other than the fact that there's like 3 foot of snow outside. I could just go get a snowball.
I don't even have any bourbon to drink at the moment. That's not true.
No.
I'm sure there's some Jim Beam in the house somewhere. But
if you wanted to go on a journey, you could find some, right?
I'm hitting the Soda Stream with Crystal Light pretty hard today.
Soda Stream. I've seen them, never used one, heard good things.
Dude, not that I ever felt like I was a soda addict or anything like that, but I definitely drank soda. I actually drank diet soda or caffeine-free diet because that's what my parents drank all the time growing up. But, I would drink all different flavors, whatever. And just trying to be a little healthier, I was like, time to cut out the soda. And don't get me wrong, I've had a soda here and there, but this Soda Stream thing's awesome. Like just having some carbonated stuff, and I don't have to go buy tons of cases of sparkling flavored water at the store. I just keep some Mio and Crystal Light things around and splash it in there as needed. Works pretty good and tastes delicious if you mix vodka with it.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah,
delicious and nutritious. Yes.
Yeah.
Checks all the boxes.
That's right.
So we've got a few people tuned in here. We'll kind of get rolling with the conversation. And I see we've got our hardworking sumbitch Dan Dunnigan on here. He's always on here. I don't know how his marriage is still intact with how committed he is to this podcast, but we appreciate you. Very much looking forward to. We're going up. They've got a nice booth set up and planned for the New York Outdoor Show this weekend up in Syracuse. So I've never been to that show. I'm kind of excited about it. So I'm going to be heading up there Friday. They're going up tomorrow to set up. I stopped in to see them today over at the store, and they were getting sheets laminated with specials they're going to have. They got all kinds of deals they're going to have going on, from trail cameras to blind chairs, things like that. Blinds, tree stands, sticks, the whole gamut. So yeah, I'm excited to go up there and work with those guys in the booth for the day. And I think my dad might be going up either Saturday or Sunday to do the same to help them out. So good people
Yeah,
over there.
I've heard he's a big fan. Is he a official pro staffer?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm hoping Big Jim gets on here because I want to see. Dad and I, we got these special delivery packages this week. Some pretty nice swag that they sent over to the Harveys for pimping them all the time. But Big Jim didn't get one, so there's been some text going back. I was hoping to get Dan and Jimbo kind of going at it a little, explain himself, give each person a minute on the floor, but I guess
they can't give him free stuff because they need him to buy stuff in order to give you the free
right,
stuff.
exactly. Yeah.
How that works.
Yeah. I told Jimmy, I said there's a benefit to, having your name on a DBA, like you just your mailbox is always filling up with free stuff. It's great. Except for the fact you got expenses that you have to take care of. But aside from that, it's great.
Yeah.
So the show this weekend. Last thing I want to.
Cool. I've been there numerous times. We when I was doing stuff with the Turkey Federation, we would host a calling contest there. It was probably the noisiest, most frustrating turkey calling contest ever, because we were always located right next to like where the food is being made.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always spatulas chopping up cheesesteaks, and the dogs for the water dog stuff were barking, and the loudspeaker was directly over the stage or where the callers were. It was interesting. I'm not sure if they're still doing it there or not, but they told them, if you do a calling contest, we'll let you have a booth there, and they did sign up a lot of members there. So
nice.
They get a lot of people through there. Hopefully, they get a lot of people through there this year. I think you probably will see a lot.
Yeah, I think it's been two years, I think, since they've done a show there. Yeah, so I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think there's a lot of people itching to get out and to go do stuff like that again. So hopefully there's a nice turnout. So it'll be fun to see. I will have anybody who's there, and I mean, really, I'm going to do it for anybody. But we've got Shed Fest going on. I haven't really been pushing it real hard. It's kind of hard to get motivated to go out and walk around looking for sheds when there's freaking 2.5 feet of snow right now and it's 0 degrees every day. But I wanted to get it started. Actually, look back in the timeline, and we started Shed Fest last year, like mid-February. So we were like a month ahead, which is fine by me. We got the shirts ordered, got everything kind of rolling, and a bunch of great sponsors. And I'm excited to have Shed Fest out there. So anybody who's listening to this that doesn't know what we're doing with Shed Fest or what it is, we're just basically, it's essentially a membership drive for the National Deer Association. If you buy a shirt, you go on our website, pertneroutdoors.com. We've got the T-shirt for sale there. You can buy the shirt, pick your size, you pay for shipping, $30 for the shirt plus shipping. We got some stickers on there. We got some turkey calls left yet from Bushwhacker. If anybody wants any calls, I've discounted all them pretty well because I'd like to get them out the door before turkey season. But anyway, you get with the T-shirt, you get entered into the raffle that we're doing, where we've got a pile of stuff that's being donated from all the sponsors. But the grand prize is going to be a Kifaru backpack. So I worked with Kifaru, and they gave us a nice discount. So we'll be buying a pack. I've kind of gone back and forth. I have a price range. I think I'm willing to spend $600 with the discount they're giving me. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. Bullhorn has helped us out. They gave us a bunch of money for being one of the top shows in the month of October. So to me, the only reason why we did that and why we were successful with it was because of the people that were listening. So I'm just taking that money and just giving it back, essentially. So my idea, instead of buying a backpack and saying, hey, here it is, I'm going to give people the choice of what pack they want because they have so many different choices. But I was telling my brother, I wonder how many people, they see, oh, we're giving away a grand prize of a Kifaru pack. I don't know if, not everybody is tuned into that and understands what that is and what the value is of it. So, I mean, some of those packs are anywhere from, with the pack, the bag and the frame combo, you're looking at anywhere as close to, $700 to $800 for that, high quality American made product. So I'm excited to have that to be able to put out there to people. And, I'll be at the show. I'll bring my pack to kind of show that and have some stickers to give away there for anybody that places that. We got the Shed Fest logo made into some stickers so everybody can get some of them. So stop by the booth there, and I'll have my laptop. So if anybody wants to purchase in and get in on Shed Fest, we'll do that and essentially just get you out there, get you a membership to the National Deer Association, and find some sheds. So
Hey, did you use the same style shirt as you did last year?
yep.
Because that's like one of the most comfortable shirts ever.
I know. Yeah. So I went with I actually went with a Gildan shirt that was an Avril, I think was the brand, but I think that's like a subset under Gildan. And Russ, just the Russ that does the shirts for us, he had there was like nothing available last year at the time. So this year I was kind of looking at the different stuff, and I went with it's a Gildan ring spun cotton shirt, so it's kind of like that pre-spun, like pre-softened shirt. I've got a few of them that he's made for his Whitetail Company brand, and I love them. Like, they're incredibly comfortable shirts. They fit good. They don't shrink. They don't change shapes, sizes, anything. They hold true. So yeah, I'm fired up to get those shirts. I think they're pretty badass. It's a cool logo he made up, and it's pretty fun. So
It's awesome.
yeah. So that's kind of the housekeeping end of things. I'm sure there's one last thing. I told Sean Burdick, he's the chair of the Upper Genesee National Deer Association chapter. They're doing a whole they're a new chapter. They started up last year, but they're doing a seminar series. So tomorrow night, actually the 27th, is their first seminar of the year. They've got Ben Williams is going down there, and he's talking. I believe Mike Edwards is as well. They're doing some winter habitat discussions. So it's open, free to anybody who's a member. Might be a little bit late notice, but they've got a whole kind of every other month. They're going to do something throughout the year. I think the next one was in March. So he is looking at trying to get some people in from Cornell to talk about CWD, which would be a very interesting discussion there. Maybe a biologist to come in as well. So they're doing some pretty cool stuff there with the Upper Genesee chapter, and I talked to him quite a bit about they're going to do that 3D archery shoot again in May. I think it's like May 26th or May 21st. It's like the week before. It's the weekend before Memorial Day. So kind of look at that, everybody, and mark your calendars, because we went last year, Danny Boy and I did, and we had a freaking blast, and that was the first time they'd ever done an event, and it was awesome. I mean, I've been to a bunch of events that you've put on, Brian, and it was, the only thing different was it was an outdoor event, but they had a lot of cool stuff going on, and Sean did a great job organizing that. So definitely encourage people to
down in the Wellsville area.
Yeah, so they did that at I think it was the Wellsville Rod and Gun Club is where they held that raffle event. But I think they've got some guys that are members there at the Rod and Gun, and maybe Sean is a member there. But it was a great facility for it. They got the 3D course and everything. So he's talking about doing some sort of a big saddle hunting event there, the same this summer as well. Maybe integrating that with the archery deal and the raffle, and so yeah, they got some cool stuff going on there. So anybody who's looking for stuff to start marking on their calendar, that's one I would definitely encourage you to do. Speaking of calendar, you going to go to TAC again this year or no?
I'm not. I think it's a weekend later this year. I think it's like the second weekend in June.
Oh, it's the first
Maybe
weekend.
It's the first
no,
one.
it's like, it's the first weekend. It's like June 2nd, 3rd-ish, I think.
Yeah. So there was a couple reasons why I wasn't going to do that one. Number one, I was really hoping to go to Maine and hunt that last weekend of turkey hunting in Maine, which is usually the first weekend in June. I don't know if it's even set up that way this year. But in the past, usually you can go up and hunt that first weekend in June. And I thought that'd be a cool way to extend the turkey season. However, two things. I'm getting married this summer, so time and money are, had to refocus a little bit. And on top of all that, some of our friends are getting married that weekend. And
oh, really?
So that kind of shut the door on that. And then another aspect of the TAC thing was they're doing one in Vermont again this year. They canceled it last year, but it's towards the end of May.
It's the weekend before. It's the same weekend. It's the weekend before Memorial Day. Yep.
Yeah. And so I reached out to Noble to see if he wanted to maybe go up to Vermont and bring Alicia, and I'd bring Jess, and we would turkey hunt in the morning, do the archery stuff in the afternoon. But he's got a conflict for that, and quite honestly. It's just, more traveling.
I know.
It's just kind of like a little overwhelming with everything going on right now. So
No doubt.
probably not going to do that. I really enjoyed doing that last year. And there's another aspect of that. I'm probably heading down to Seven Springs on like the weekend of the 10th in June. We're throwing around the idea of a bachelor party down there, renting a big cabin that sleeps like 20, 30 people, and doing sporting clays Saturday morning.
Oh, nice.
And then doing like a game dinner style hangout. So driving there 2 weekends in a row would also be a little rough.
You might as well just like get an Airbnb and stay there all week. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's cool. Yeah, you got a lot going. That's to getting married is a big deal. And so when is the big day?
July 23rd.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kiss it. Just kiss it goodbye. All the good times. No, she's different. No, it'll be different. No. Yeah. No, it's the best. And then if you're fortunate enough to have kids, it's, it is the biggest change of your life, but it's just it's the best. It drives you crazy half the time.
Today, actually, I saw the article about Jesse Coots campground that was in the Batavia, and I was reading that and finished that, and his name reminded me of the podcast that you guys had done, and you guys talked mostly about kids and family, and dude, that was a cool podcast because you guys are both diehard hunters, as I am, as a lot of my friends are, but it's fun to look at the different dynamic that everybody has, whether they've chosen it or not. But I have friends that feel like they're completely locked down and they can't do anything because they have kids. I have friends that just include the kids, and then I have friends that also still do what they want to do, even though the kids are at home and the wife or girlfriend are just dealing with it. Yeah, it makes me think about the how I'm going to handle that. It's whatever. It was reassuring to listen to you guys talk and realize that yeah, it's different, but it's good. And,
it is.
And I've known that all along. I'm not naive to the idea that kids are awesome. So it was just, I just wanted to say that was a good podcast. I enjoyed listening to it, and it was cool to hear your guys' perspective on the family, and that's, obviously there's always a rough patch when they're young and they require a ton of attention and all that. But I think the best part of it is when they start to become their own little people, and, you could choose to include them or if they want to be included or not. And, like you guys talked about, I hope that, my passion just transfers down the line. I'm not going to be the kind of person that pushes them into it. I've never tried to push anybody into the hunting or fishing, whatever it is, help them, get their toes wet and see if they enjoy it. And if they do, foster it. And, I'm looking forward to that time frame too, when it gets here.
Yeah. And I think that's what's interesting. My wife and I just had an exchange tonight. She's like, because I said to her, I think today is the last 2 days have been like the first 2 days, and I don't know, it's got to be back before September when like I woke up at like 4 a.m. naturally, and I was like ready to go. Like I was ready to wake up and like kind of stirring around in bed. And I mean, I've been freaking exhausted, and I don't know, is it life? Is it freaking COVID? Is it whatever? I don't know. Like everything's busy. And the reason why I say COVID is because we were sick beginning of the month. We all got it. And I mean, we were just dragging ass, but I'm always tired, and you kind of like, she made the comment, she's like, man, I think that like, she's like, I think I'm finally catching up from hunting season, and it wasn't like a shot at me, but it was a shot at like there's just no time to like breathe at all. And, she's busy all summer long with softball, and she was training for a half marathon. So she was running every chance she could get, and I was giving her that time. But then it rolled right straight into deer season, and, we're going out west to Colorado and then straight into whitetail. And it was just, there's no chance to actually catch up if you really want to try to get out there and get after it. But my reflection is I'm looking back at the season, and I'm just like, it's the same way it was. I probably hunted double the amount that I hunted the year before, and I burned myself out, and I burned every ounce of opportunity I could go. I had to be out. Like I because I was struggling. I was having a hard time getting the opportunities. The year in 2020, I mean, the deer were just in front of me, and I hunted 25 times and shot 5 deer. It just seemed easy, you know. And this year was a freaking grind. Like I couldn't during archery season, I couldn't put a deer in front of me. I was seeing deer every once in a while, but it wasn't consistent. They weren't giving me archery shots. It was just a grind. So,
Mhm.
you know, what does that do? You know, looking back at it, I should have just said, you know what? Like, I'll get my time. Gun season's coming. I can hunt half as much and have just as much success because I have confidence in the places I'm going and the ways that we hunt. I could have done that, but I didn't, you know? So I look back at that and it's like, man, and I really have to, like, I need to listen to the words that I say as I approach next deer season. And at the end of the day, all that matters is that I get my 4, 5, 6 deer to fill the freezer so we have the meat that we need for the year. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It really, I want to shoot a big buck. Yes, we're working towards shooting big bucks. But who the hell cares? Like, no one cares. If I shoot a huge buck, it's a big deal for 15 minutes until it's down the news feed, and then nobody gives a shit. So, you know, I got to like constantly keep myself remembering that. Like, I want those things, but they're not necessary. Like, fill the freezer. That's the primary responsibility there.
Yeah, for sure, man.
But how was your deer season overall? Because I joked with you because I called you after the first year. I'm like, did I like say something and upset you, or like what happened? Because we were talking like all the time, and then all of a sudden I think we all just got so busy that just never came back around. But how was your hunting season?
This whole deer season was kind of weird, man. It was slow, and likewise, I felt busy. You know, started a new job in August, and like, you know, and not that I haven't worked my entire life, but last deer season I was unemployed,
Right.
and I hunted a lot, and I killed a lot of deer. I killed 5 deer, and Jess killed 4 deer. Like our freezer was full, and that took the pressure off this year because we didn't go through it all.
Mm-mm.
And so I went into this year just like, okay, let's see what happens. You know, I don't run cameras. The place that I hunt, there's a lot of people that hunt there, and I just cameras get stolen. And we did put a few cameras out, but like not like in the caliber that most diehard deer hunters do. You know, like I wasn't checking them super regularly. I'd let them soak for a few weeks. I wouldn't even check the card. I would just pull the camera, put it in a new spot, just to get inventory, just to see what's around, or, you know, hey, maybe I was putting them in good spots, so hoping that I would find a bunch of deer. And one particular spot, like I had a bunch of deer on camera, but it was all night movement, all of it, like never a daytime picture. Even like going into season in the middle of the rut, there was some big deer. There was a lot of good like 2-year-old deer that, you know, I'm not particularly trying to shoot a 2-year-old. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, I have a Rubbermaid bin in my shed full of little deer and sheds and whatever I've found. I've got a stack of Euros behind me here that I need to get back on the wall. Just, you know, if I'm going to shoot a buck, it'll be a good one. But that being said, like if I'm not filling the freezer and it came down to like the last, you know, bit of the season, if I saw, you know, I don't know if I'd shoot a spike in that situation, but, you know, if I saw a little year and a half old 8-pointer, if I didn't have any deer, for sure I'm putting that thing in the freezer. And, you know, anybody can say what they will about it, but I wasn't getting the opportunity at does. So it's like, I'm not passing up does to shoot bucks. And I didn't do that once this year. I shot a doe with my bow mid-October in a spot. Like I went and put my dad in a stand and I walked through the woods. I like 300 yards and just climbed a tree, and like no rhyme. The reason I climbed the tree is because I scared a raccoon off of it. And I was like, oh yeah, that looks pretty straight and I can get my climber in it. So I just did it. And then sure enough, I actually passed up a decent 8 that morning and then ended up shooting a doe later on that morning, which was a cool shot for me. It was a steep quartering away shot. And, you know, I'm pretty confident in my bow, like my ability to shoot my bow. And, you know, a lot of people are, but I think a lot of times when people get in trouble saying, oh, you know, I shoot that all the time, they're not paying attention to like how the deer, you know, is it alert? Is it not alert? And a lot of times those deer just duck the string or whatever. this deer actually was coming up on my left side, and I was going to draw and have like a 5-yard shot. It was going to be super nice. I was still I was standing at that point, but I could have shot it sitting down. And for some reason, it just turned and walked behind me. And then I had to went to turn all the way around. My safety harness got caught on my stand, and my stand, for some reason, I can't get the seat to lock on the tree real well. So you bump it and it'll fall down.
Right.
So I was like freaking out. I'm like, how am I going to make this happen? And I had to unclip off my D loop, my string loop, and hold my bow with my right hand, unhook this little piece of fabric on my harness, managed to get turned around. But by this time, the deer's at like 18 yards and straight away from me. But I have a shot, like if it was to turn. And sure enough, it like took one big step to the right. And I was like, I can get that in there. It was just feeding. And it was alert all up until it started feeding. So I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I shot it, and then I'm panicking. Like, did I get a good shot? I thought I had a pass through. Couldn't find my arrow. Couldn't find blood. I waited a while, and then eventually I started just walking where the deer went, and I found a little bit of blood and a little more blood. And sure enough, like as perfect as it gets, like entered right in front of the back leg, and the broadhead was sticking out of the knee of the front opposite side leg. And, it ran, I don't know, 80 yards maybe. So that was pretty cool. And then I didn't see another deer to shoot. Until the last night of bow season. And I got a new spot to hunt this year where I can only hunt it during bow season. And it was the last night of bow season. And I get in there, and where I'd had my camera, where I'd seen these bucks, where I'd been hunting, one of the gun hunter guys had put a ladder stand up like 20 yards away. So I was like, all right, whatever, clearly they're doing it because I know that they just drive that property, and it's a great little overlook to shoot deer with a gun as they're running through this creek bottom. But sitting there, and like, it was last light, like very dark, it was borderline couldn't shoot, but it stepped out into an opening where I had a shot at like 15 yards, and I made a good shot on that one. It literally, there's blood on the ladder of another ladder stand that they had put up sometime since the last time I was there. Like, I'm following the blood trail, and then I just see the base of a ladder stand, and I look up, and it had sprayed blood on the guy's ladder. Like,
that's pretty funny.
Bloodbath blood trail too. Yeah. So I'm sure that dude in the morning walking in, like, saw that blood trail leading right to his ladder. And I at least like dragged it away from the stand to gut it, but
that would have been funny. Gut it right and dump the whole gut pile right in front of the stand. That would have been something.
right underneath.
What a dick move that would have been.
Yeah. No, honestly, I don't care what anybody says. Gut piles don't affect deer movement. I've shot deer sniffing gut piles. Like, they just don't care. But that would kind of irk me if I showed up in the morning, opening day gun season, and looked down, there's a fresh gut pile from the night before under my tree stand. I'd be a little annoyed. Right. So anyways, I shot those 2 deer, and they were both good sized does, and I was happy. Like, freezer is looking pretty full. I'm not real pressed up, and opening day gun season, I saw a bunch of deer. I saw 4 different 4-pointers that I could have shot all of them. 2 of them bedded down in front of me. And then, I don't know, every other time I gun hunted, some other guys hunting would move some deer around. I'd see them running off in the distance, through the woods. Maybe thought I might have a shot on a doe one day, but it didn't work out. And that was kind of it. And then Jess's nephews they were going to come up just after Christmas, and we were going to celebrate Christmas and New Year's at our house. And her one nephew, he's always asking to go hunting with us and just, he's into it, but he just turned 12 recently, and he has a lifetime hunting license, but his mom wants him to do a in-person hunter ed course. So he didn't have it. And I'm going to have to talk to her, because we're definitely getting him a hunter ed course online before turkey season, because he's ready to go, man. He just wants to do it. Like, he came here, we hunted Thursday before New Year's, and we actually saw a deer way out, but it didn't amount to anything. And then I told him if he wanted to spend the night New Year's Eve, we'd go out New Year's Day. And sure enough, we go out New Year's morning, and, I wake him up. He gets right out of bed with no problem, throws his clothes on, go over there. And I hunted a spot that I'd hunted a few times during bow season and saw one deer, but at the end of gun season, we did some drives, and we had driven a couple of bucks out to my dad. One of them was a nice one, and one of the drivers was behind the deer, so he didn't have a good shot at it. And so I knew that there was a couple of deer in there, and I thought probably nobody's messed with them since that day. And so I thought, well, let's go give it a shot. And we went in there and got set up and the kid kept telling me, I'm here. I hear a deer. And I'd look over and I'd be like, no, but that's that squirrel that's right next to me. And that happened a couple of times. And then I heard a branch break, and I said, that was a deer. Like, there was no doubt that was a deer. And I said, pay attention, look right in front of us here. And there was kind of like a thicket of like rose bushes and grapevines and stuff. And I saw some movement. And honestly, I thought it was a coyote. I'm like, oh man, it's a coyote. And then it moved again. And I was like, nope, that's the camouflage pants of a hunter. Like, how come he's not wearing any orange? And then the buck put his head down and I saw antlers. I'm like, oh, that is a deer. But it really didn't look like a deer to me in the first couple glances.
Was he wearing pants or not?
Yeah, I'm sick of
yeah. That optifade, that blue in there, you could see it from a mile away. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it did. It looked like a guy's camouflage pant because I could just see little glimpses of it through the brush. But when I recognized it was a deer, like, it was coming down a trail that was going to put it 20 yards in front of us when it came around this little clump of thick stuff. And I clicked the hammer back on my muzzleloader to get ready. And that thing heard it from like 50 yards out and keyed right in on where we were.
Were you sitting on the ground or in a tree?
We were in a tree.
In a tree.
And no, just a regular old tree stand. I had a kid with me.
Big Jim, welcome to the program.
It's funny you say that, though, because I screwed up and took him on Thursday night. We went to a stand that I thought was a double stand, but it turned out to just be like a fat guy single stand. Mm-hmm. And so we were crunched in there. But anyway, that deer, it just stared at us for a long time, and then finally decided to go the opposite direction around that thick stuff, which was putting him off to my right. So I had to kind of swing around and get my gun pointing off the right side of the stand. And unfortunately, the kid couldn't see over there, but he got to watch the deer walk around. We could see him walking up to that point. And I grunted to stop him. And honestly, when I saw antlers, I didn't pay any attention to them. I thought for a second, like, that might be a big deer, but whatever. I'm just killing it. I was going to kill a fawn that day just to kill a deer with that kid. And I grunted to stop him, and he stopped with his entire body behind this giant oak tree. Mm-hmm. And it was just the hindquarters showing. And I was like, oh, man.
That'll do. Yep. There's some arteries in there.
Right? So I'm sitting there. I got my gun on his hindquarters, just waiting. And eventually the kid goes, is it still over there? I'm like, and this thing's like 25 yards away from us. Like, yeah. Well, it was probably further. It was probably in like the 40-yard range. But I'm like, yeah. I'm like, don't talk, don't move. And I'm not joking. That thing stood there for 5 minutes. And I went through buck fever. I started shaking so bad, my leg, like, I couldn't even move my legs. I had to just talk to myself and be like, listen, this could be a spike. You don't really know. But the longer he stood there, it made me think that he's older and smarter. And eventually I calmed myself down, and I'm like, all right, I was nervous he was going to pull one of those moves where they get behind a tree and just disappear and you never see him again. It was pretty wide open, but if he had gone straight away from me, I wouldn't have had a shot. And eventually I just saw that little tail flicker, and I was like, here we go. Put my gun over on the other side of the tree, and I had 2 little gaps I could shoot through, and I just didn't want to grunt at him again, because I figured it wasn't going to last. He wasn't going to stick around. So I didn't shoot through those little gaps, and I just waited for him to walk like another 15 yards probably, and there was a huge wide, I had 30 yards across that I could have shot him. And as soon as his shoulder hit my crosshair, I pulled the trigger, didn't bother trying to stop him. And I actually saw him mule kick through the scope, through the smoke, and I pulled my head back and saw him run out towards the field with his tail tucked down. And I was like, I think I just killed that deer. But, with a muzzleloader, you're always kind of, I don't know. And I'm, to be honest with you, I don't have the greatest confidence in the blood trails. I've been shooting power belts, not for any particular good reason. I shot them out of my muzzleloaders when I elk hunted in Colorado and just kind of stuck with them, even though I downsized. I was shooting like something stupid, like 450 grain ones when I was elk hunting. But
that'll flip a doe over, I'll tell you that.
What's that?
That's what I shoot. 405s, power belts, and
400 something. And
they flip the deer over when you hit them with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't stick with them. I downgraded to 245s, and but I haven't had good blood trails with power belts, and so it makes me nervous when I shoot them. And I just didn't want to deal with trying to find and find new stuff and test it out with ammo supplies being so limited. I didn't even bother looking. Maybe there was tons of muzzleloader ammo and black powder available, but I wasn't going to mess around. I had my stuff. I was just going to keep using it. So all that doubt was running through my head. But we walked up to where I hit him, and there was blood on both sides of the trail. And the blood trail was super easy. The kid followed it, and I kind of just walked next to him. And we got to where I last saw him, and I couldn't find blood. And then we looked, and he just did a little loop around a rose bush and piled up in the rose bush. So he ran about like 80 yards. And he was much bigger than I was ever expecting. It's my second biggest deer ever.
It's outstanding. So, on the first of the year, first of 2022. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a beauty.
I might have shot the first buck in 2022.
You may have. In the Pert Near gang, you did. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that holiday hunt was badass, man. That was a lot of fun. I hope they keep that thing around because I'm going to definitely agenda myself appropriately for that in the future.
I mean, I saw a huge swing in that last week there that just the deer yarded up.
And that was without snow.
Imagine if we got some better weather. If we had actually had some snow, like it would have been seriously awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the temperatures were well above average that week.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying the temperatures were well above average that week. I was reading an article I just got the paper today from Outdoor News, but the last edition, they had a write-up about the weather during that period of time. And I think like in the southern zone, I think almost every area that they checked was like 5 to 10 degrees over that, their average temperature during that time. Damn, Big Jim, that's a nice buck.
I just picked that up tonight.
It's beautiful. What'd you end up doing with yours, Brian?
Same.
0.
It's still at the shop getting cleaned.
Yeah, my PA buck's still getting cleaned. I don't know. I might have to take a long ride through the country, see if I can figure out where that is. What was Jeff Foxworthy's thing on Incomplete Deer Hunter?
I'd like my freaking deer head back now.
I got cousins that like to take long rides in the country. Yeah. Did you ever watch that, Brian, the Incomplete Deer Hunter?
Probably.
Jeff Foxworthy.
Oh my God, they're priceless.
We had to watch that 200 times, and like not even exaggerating. Dad bought these DVDs for us back in the day. Might have been VHS, but Jeff Foxworthy had his spoof hunting stuff that he did. It's the best.
I've seen some of them for sure.
Yeah.
Did you really drop your head off to get cleaned, and you haven't heard anything since?
Yeah, it's one of the guys that hunts with us, and I'm sure he's been as busy as we have. I gave it to him during the holiday hunt, and I'm not hounding him because I know how busy I've been, so I'm not after him about it. But I'd love to get him back, my PA buck, and see what he looks like all cleaned up and on the wall next to the rest of them. So
I'm used to the guy that we used in the regular season, and he closed up business by the time I shot that one. So I took it to another guy over in Caledonia, and I'm used to like 2-3 days. You got your head back. And this guy took a little bit longer, but he did a really nice job.
What the hell is that? Is that caribou?
What'd you say?
What is that?
Your guess?
That's not a caribou. That's a red deer?
Oh. No.
Sika? Sika?
No.
Swamp buck?
Reindeer? Santa's Rudolph. Is that
You already
Rudolph?
said caribou, man.
Yeah, but those are different. You obviously don't know your genus regularis.
Stop.
Yeah. What is that?
It's a fallow deer.
Fallow deal. I was getting there. It was just down the list.
It's a tiny fallow deer. Well,
I was gonna
maybe
say,
not tiny,
is it
but
Axis? Where the hell did you get that?
New Zealand.
Did you? Oh, that's right. You did go on a trip over there a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Is that him?
No. Mine's still at the shop.
Which one's that?
This was like, I don't know, a bow deer from like 4 or 5 years ago.
That's a beauty.
Yeah.
I got a couple other ones back here. I had them in my garage, and then I built some shelving, and I took them down, and they've just been sitting in my office now. That one is that's the deer I shot on the ground in Indiana, hence the Indiana shaped plaque under it.
Nice.
Doesn't do it justice.
No.
Yeah, the one you shot this year is a 10, right? The last one?
It was a 9, actually.
A 9?
Yeah. On the other side, it actually had like a little nub where it was trying to grow a point, and then directly under it, it had a little nub where it was trying to grow a drop tine too. But if I had those, it would have probably been my biggest deer ever. That deer I shot this year was.
I mean, it was pretty funny when I saw that picture because that was very similar to the deer that I shot like 4 days before you.
Yeah, it was.
Oh man.
I think yours had more mass than mine did, but
that thing had 5-inch bases.
Jesus.
5-inch bases, 19 and 5/8 wide, I believe.
Nice. Inside.
I had the scores right here. But yeah, it was wider than the buck that I shot last year, which was my biggest buck. It scored like 138 and something. This one only scored 126 or 128 and change, but only because it was lacking points. The one last year was an 11-pointer. So I'm super pumped about it.
That's outstanding. And that kid must have been fired right up. I mean,
he was pretty excited. I told myself that whole last week, I was like, whatever you do, if you shoot a buck, don't go grab it by the antlers. It's January. And I walked right. I mean, that if you could see in the pictures, if you noticed, like it was rubbing trees that morning. There was fresh bark in its bases, and I walked up there, didn't even think twice about it, just grabbed right on and yanked him out of the brush. And then I dragged him about 5 feet. I was like, well, maybe I ought to put him down and just not start reefing on his antlers right away.
I thought the same thing because mine dropped in its tracks, and I was like, you want to go up there and grab the horns, and I'm like, watch freaking horns pop off this thing.
Yeah. It feels like when you pop the stem off a pumpkin when you're out pumpkin picking from when you're a kid. I've done that. I've done it a couple times with like little deer down in Virginia. And
we hunted that same spot the next day, and almost probably within 100, 150 yards of where mine dropped dead, Mike picked up a beautiful set of fresh sheds with blood still on them. So, I mean, they were dropping.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then like 2 weeks later, Greg was out there, and they found another big set. It's like
same corner.
What a freaking zoo! It's unbelievable. Yeah. Jesus,
yeah,
it ain't even right. It's not fair. Big Jim. I know he's the Great American Harvey Whitetail Champion of 2021, but he shot all of his deer in the same place, and it's just not even. I'm not really impressed. Is what I guess.
Well, I tried to take your tactics and do something just completely different.
Yeah, so you just went to the same.
It seemed to have worked. So.
No, it worked for sure. But I mean, all right. You can't honestly be proud of yourself, right?
No, I kind of am.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. I mean, if that's what makes you happy. For me, you hunted the same freaking 40 acres like over and over.
Very smartly. Hit and go very successfully.
Very successful. Very successful. There's no deer in that woods, Jim. There's no deer in there.
There's none.
None. The population's
no. There really was a big switch that flipped there at the end of the season.
Oh yeah.
We weren't seeing a ton of deer in there, and then all of a sudden that last week, that late season, it was a freaking zoo. That all it's got to be is like lack of crop. Less pressure, everything just started filing back in. But It was crazy.
And I actually got a message from a guy after I posted pictures of my deer on Facebook. He hunts, I don't know, a mile or two north of where I was, and I don't know exactly where he was, but roughly. And he had that deer show up on his camera the second day of gun season, and he had gotten pictures of him through gun season, and he had just disappeared again. And then I shot him, and probably, the pressure where I was hunting, they probably pushed him out of there, and he found a little safe spot and managed to slip by that other guy. He might have even seen him in the daylight. I don't remember the whole story, but whatever, he survived until he walked by me.
Yeah, it really don't matter much anymore. He's kind of dead in the freezer.
Well, I mean, it was kind of a fun cat and mouse game because, like, you can, with a property that size, you can blow it out real quick. They can learn what you're doing real quick. And it was fun to be kind of strategic about it. Like, I think I hung a stand the last weekend of bow. I wasn't even hunting. I just went out and hung a stand because I was like, I know where I want it for gun season. I think I told either Billy or our buddy Adam there, I was like, if I play my cards right, I'll shoot a big buck out of that by the end of the season. And it literally took to the last week of season, but I didn't overhunt it. And I just knew the spot and knew that if I played my cards right, I'd have an opportunity at some point. And, I didn't get stuck on, I have to hunt that stand. I went in on a different wind, and I used the saddle setup. I got on the other end of it, and it's just making the little movements and making sure you're not blowing the whole thing out all the time. It was just kind of fun to, it was the first year that I really hunted in there like that. So it was fun to bop around and make a little game of it, but worked out well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I like to bust your chops on it, Jim, but it was a hell of a season. I mean, it is, to everything you just said, and most of your deer were not shot. They were shot on stand strategically, which is pretty cool. Both your bucks were, which is even better. And, I look at what we're trying to do here with my in-laws farm, and it was just a really, really odd year as far as the deer movement went. And we didn't have, like, it is wild. And you've probably seen some of the trail cam pictures, Jim, but we've got right now. I mean, it's nuts, Brian. I mean, now all of a sudden, I think we have two different groups of bucks on each side of the road, and it's just day and night, day and night, day and night, day and night, and they're just living there. And there's like one or two groups of does that are there, but for the majority, it's just all bucks. And there's got to be like 10 or 12 different bucks that are just hanging on our property, and there's only a couple good ones, but the rest of them are all like yearlings or small 2-year-olds. So it's like, well, you guys are around. I don't know where you go during the season. I mean, there's enough area out here, but that's what's so much different about where Jimmy's hunting compared to where I am. It's like there's such little timber where Jimmy's hunting that if you find the timber and you don't push them out of there, your opportunities are grand because they want to be in that cover once the crops come down. Whereas you come out here, we do have a lot of crops, but when they come down, you see a little bit of a change, but there wasn't a whole bunch of change this year. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, even in that block of woods, I mean, I didn't see the deer that we used to see. And I think a couple of factors play into that. They did a huge logging through there last year, which totally changed the landscape of some of the gullies out front and stuff. And then on top of that, they're putting solar farm in, which cut out one of the field that we hunted was probably a 10 and 15 acre field. But then the one back below it too, they're doing solar in. So that's all fenced off now. And they're in there with a freaking one of those jackhammer things setting posts for all the freaking solar panels from sun up to sundown. So like you're sitting in a tree stand 300 yards away, and all you hear is that tink, 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 tink all freaking day long.
Yeah.
And we had texted about it the one time. I'm like, man, is this just nonstop? I'm like, it's kind of soothing. It's almost putting me to sleep like a noise machine. But,
yeah.
But those guys were up there every day except for Sundays. And it definitely changed the traffic. And I think that's why the late season was so good, was because they probably finally got used to it and just started to yard back up for the winter and come out of town. And everything just lined up right. But I mean, that was not a normal year in there by any parts from what I've seen in the past.
No, and you had no acorns really
Right.
to say of, and so yeah, I'm excited for next year because I think there was probably a lot of deer that made it because they weren't doing their normal thing. So I think next season could be a heck of a lot of fun. But so I want to kind of turn the tables here. We've been almost at an hour. But what I wanted to talk with Brian about, I wanted to kind of hear a little bit from you about what you've got going on with a new job at DU at Ducks Unlimited. So that's what's it been, 6 to 8 months? Has it been almost a year?
Yeah, it started at the beginning of August. So.
Okay, so 5 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
So what's up with that organization? I'm not familiar. I'm not, really nobody in our family. My Uncle Chris has kind of gotten into waterfowl a little bit, but what's that life all about over there? How is that going?
They're well, you're familiar with Turkey Federation.
Yep.
And NDA and a bunch of other NGOs, right? Non-governmental organizations, nonprofit conservation organizations. DU is kind of like the first one. They're like, I think they're the oldest one. They've been around for a long time. Everybody else has modeled their fundraising stuff kind of after them in some fashion. They kind of started all of that, and so as from a broad perspective, it's the same type of thing. Their mission statement is to improve and restore, conserve wetlands to put as many ducks in the sky as possible, right? That isn't a big surprise. That's kind of, you can tell just by looking at the name. And that's what they do, man. They just to put it into perspective, they're orders of magnitude larger than the other organizations are as far as money goes, and they're when you're talking about restoring wetlands are great for waterfowl, but they're also the most important thing for us and for every other living creature because they filter water and they provide a lot of habitat. When you think of a wetland, I'm guessing that you probably just envision probably some open water and cattails, right? And that is probably the least important type of wetland, right? There's forested wetlands and a bunch of other kinds of wetlands. I won't go into all the technical side of it, but basically, it to get back to my job there, or what it is. I have a background in wildlife biology, but it was heavy, or wildlife management, but it was heavy on wetland ecology and waterfowl. So I had a good wetland background. I've talked about this before. I went to Virginia, worked for a consulting firm that built wetland mitigation banks and stream restorations. And that's what landed me this job, along with my experience as a land surveyor, which I did in the realm of doing building wetlands and stuff. So, DU, they have their fundraising side, just like every other organization. They raise money and they turn around and put that into habitat work. And listen, I've been there, this 6 months or so, and it's so overwhelming that I couldn't even confidently tell you about all the different funding sources. But I will say there's a lot of grants and government money available for matching. So you can take fundraising dollars and match it with government money or grant money so that you can have twice as much to put habitat work on the ground. Now, the conservation side of things, they do a lot of work with, public lands and there is some on private lands, I'd imagine, but I'm not sure about that. But I got hired for a specific group. I got hired under the engineers, which work in the conservation side, because of my CAD experience and my land surveying experience. They needed somebody to help with that. But also they were looking for somebody to help out with their wetland mitigation department or program. And to explain mitigation a little bit, in very simple terms, if somebody develops, a contractor or a municipality, whoever it may be, develops a piece of land, maybe they put a road through a wetland, or they, have to fill a part of a wetland to finish a construction site of some regard or in some way. When they impact those wetlands, they have to mitigate for that in some fashion. They can do it on site. They can do it themselves if it's the right situation. But a lot of times it requires a lot more work, and sometimes it's just easier for them to pay for credits. So that's where mitigation banks come into play. So somebody could go out, DU's doing it. The company I worked for in Virginia did it. They go out and they build a wetland from scratch, essentially. It's not necessarily from scratch, right? We're trying to build it in a spot where it's going to be able to function as a wetland permanently. We don't have to have human influence on it forever to make it work, right? But we'll find ag fields that were drained or ditched or whatever, and you can plug those ditches, you can disturb the drain tiles, you can build berms in some situations, but basically we're trying to regrade those areas and reestablish the wetland vegetation and the hydric soils that are two of the components of a wetland, the third being hydrology, which is actually having water in it. Doesn't have to be wet. Like I said, there's a bunch of different types of wetlands. And so you might drive by one and not even realize you're driving by one. It might be full of trees, but because it meets certain criteria to be a wetland, and those criteria are the hydrology, meaning like it has to have some signs of water. There has to be rack lines from when it was flooded. A rack line is when like debris kind of builds up on the shoreline type stuff. You have to have hydric soils, which means those soils have to be wet enough, long enough that it bleaches the color out of the soil. And, they've determined that, certain colors of soils have, there's a line in there, this type of gray or this type of soil might have like a mottled color to it. When it hits this stage, that is considered a wetland because it's been wet long enough for, a long enough time period. And, it's been wet for long enough durations within that time period that it bleaches the color out. And then the plants are kind of the biggest thing, or the easiest thing to see, I guess. There's plants that have a bunch of categories, I guess. There's plants that if you see that plant, it's 100% of the time it's in a wetland. And so that would be like an obligate species, right? All the way through the spectrum to where when you see that species, it's always in an upland. And then there's a bunch of categories in between. And so like the cattail marsh that I talked about, like that's a monoculture, right? Like there's one species across the board, not great. And, having one species across the board for vegetation is never great for wildlife habitat anyways. So, there's always going to be some sort of component of that, but, a lot of what we're doing is rebuilding forested wetlands, and another type is called, Plustrian scrub, which if I say scrub, you can kind of guess, it's going to have dogwoods and willows and that, scrubby kind of stuff. We try to have a little bit of each component in the mitigation bank so that, we get credits for that. Credits are based on acreage. And then, there's a price that's affixed to that. And I believe that's agreed upon with the Army Corps of Engineers. Army Corps of Engineers have a big hand in regulating all this. And so we basically are looking to build projects. We've got a couple projects on the ground in New York. I can think of, I'm pretty sure there's at least 3, possibly 4, like that are straight up mitigation projects. We just closed on a property. It's out near, just west of where Montezuma is, Galen Wildlife Management Area. It's near Clyde. And so that wildlife management area has kind of been separated by a chunk of private land. So we got a hold of that private land, just closed on it like on New Year's Day or something like that.
Nice.
So I was out there last week. We did the topo survey, and now next week I'll start working on the design of that. And then, there's going to be, it's years in the making with permitting and all of the review process to get it to where you're actually, putting a shovel in the ground and doing work. But usually those construction projects, they might last a month or two. This one will actually be pretty good because it's all ag fields on a floodplain. Just, preliminarily, it's looking like, we'll probably just plug up some ditches and disturb some drain tile and till it up and replant the plants that should be there. They've been planted in corn and soybeans and probably hay in the past. And so it'll go back into actual wetland vegetation, and we'll have to monitor it for 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, if it's meeting its criteria, then it's a wetland. And, there is some long-term management. You might have to, have like a stewardship to pull boards in a water control structure. Not saying in that particular situation, but if we did have a berm and we had a water control structure, we'd want to influence the water is heavily the first couple of years, just dry it out so that plants can get established really well, and then flood it in the right time of the year. And then that might have to happen for years to come. And a lot of DU will buy these mitigation project properties and we'll hold them just for a short period of time. We'll build the project. Once the project's built, then we'll turn it over to a land trust or to the state, or some sort of long-term steward that could, make sure it'll have a permanent conservation easement on it, so nothing can ever be done there again. But, sometimes there is some ongoing work that needs to be done, so we have to work out an agreement with somebody to do that. But I get to see that, and I get to see just the straight up conservation side of things. Just in my short time there, I've been to Vermont for a mitigation project. I went to Connecticut for a habitat project. And I spent a week down in New Jersey in the coastal high marsh.
Cool.
And they're looking at, that's a big deal right now. And the DU is definitely going to be digging in more in the near future with coastal marsh preservation, I guess would be a good term. There'll be some restoration work too, I'm sure, but there's rising tide levels every year, so we're losing more and more of the coastal marsh every year as the tides perpetually rise. So they're trying to find ways to I wanted to say mitigate that, but that is true. It's not going to be a mitigation bank, but
right.
They're going to have to try to offset that and try to protect those coastal marshes, which are super important habitat as well. And I'm just barely scratching the surface. I really don't understand about the methodology. I was down there with my GPS unit doing some surveying and walked around for 3 or 4 days with the biologist that covers PA and New Jersey and a few other places. But he's kind of heading up this coastal work. And, it's kind of a new avenue for DU, but, just as important as everything else. So
all that's really fascinating. And I think that's a little bit different than what you see with a lot of your normal conservation organizations. I mean, they're physically out there, and sounds like there's a massive staff and all these different departments of all these people that are out physically doing different things, which is a little bit different than what I'm familiar with.
They have a lot more staff. They're just bigger in general.
Yeah.
But we're still stretched pretty thin. I mean, I work in out of an office in Syracuse. There's 6 of us in that office. And that's just a little field office or sub office for the Great Lakes Atlantic region. They cover everything from Minnesota to Maine down to, I think it includes Virginia now. It used to be just down to Maryland, but that there is an office in Michigan, and I think I actually asked, and if I remember correctly, I want to say there might be around 40 or 50 employees in that office. And so, there might be 6 other regions in the country, 6 or 7 maybe.
Yeah.
And so, multiply that out. It's not huge. And I guess that probably doesn't include the fundraising staff. So, figure a couple of RDs for every every state, and then our the directors of development, things like that, to go after the big money donations.
Yeah, and I think that's the we've talked the Turkey Federation on here. We've talked the Deer Association. I've been in touch now with Todd and Nate over at the Rough Grouse Society. Been talking with them, planning on getting them on here, and talking with you now on DU. I think the unique thing is I think a lot of these organizations, a lot of the efforts, they do all work in a way together, whether the organizations are directly working together or not. I think there's a lot of similarities in what you're working on this thing over here, but what you're doing is benefiting a lot of things, and restoring some of these wetlands and creating some areas and tying different pieces of property together. That's really cool what you guys are doing out there in Wayne County with that project. That's awesome. And that's something might be cool to kind of see that as it develops and moves along, because that's cool stuff. I mean, taking a piece of land that's, that has been a monoculture being farmed, and then being able to turn it into wetland and that habitat is pretty sweet. That's cool.
Yeah. And, they'll do things like, if they can acquire, I think we actually did just purchase, don't quote me on this. I'm pretty sure that DU just helped with the acquisition of a piece of property that's just going to get turned over to Montezuma to become more of Montezuma. It's not always necessarily like we have to do some work on the ground to enhance habitat. Sometimes they just recognize habitat and try to protect it. I don't know how much that happens. I'm gonna have to be there for a little while before I'm really understanding everything.
So what are some of the biggest threats you see with what you deal with on a day-to-day basis? We're doing this kind of work. What are some of the challenges that DU is looking at? Like, how is the waterfowl populations doing? Is there anything that's really threatening them right now?
Yeah, man, I wish I could speak to that. I haven't had enough time to pick the brains of the right people. Obviously, waterfowl populations are struggling right now. If you talk to any duck hunters, they'll tell you that the last couple seasons, hunting's been terrible. Just sightings have been down substantially. I don't want to even speak to the reasons why. I have my ideas just from, a layman's terms, but I haven't spoke with, I'm in touch with the right people. I just haven't sat down and spent the time to talk about it yet.
Yeah.
And I trust me, I get the questions all the time now that I work for them, and I probably should have some canned answers, but it just, life's been busy, and I haven't had the time to do my own research and read up on stuff like I normally would. I had a good stretch of my past where I did a lot of waterfowl hunting, and I probably would have kept up on it more in those times and been a little more informed. But right now my concern is to go to work and do my job the best I can. And that's not my job, and luckily, like, the director of conservation, I believe is her title for the Great Lakes Atlantic region, is in my office, and she's really tuned into it. I think she even sits on the waterfowl or the flyway board for the Atlantic Flyway. She's the one that knows it all. She's super busy, and I've been pretty busy myself, so I haven't spent the time to pick her brain about it. And we have the state biologist that covers New York and now Vermont and maybe some other states. He's in our office as well. But, like I said, we're all busy, and it's just been focusing on doing work, and I haven't had those casual conversations yet.
Yeah. It seems like I don't know I think it might have been last winter or after last winter, there was a lot of back and forth between what the DEC was saying was going on and then what a lot of the hunters were saying was going on, that they weren't buying what they were saying, whether it was the season dates or it was the tag allotments, or I think a lot of that was with the geese, with the Canadian geese, and then the geese that were staying here, kind of the home bodies, I guess. But that is all so far outside of my realm, but it's fascinating to me because it's like, how the hell do you know if this goose came from Canada or if this one lives here? Like, I don't freaking know. So that's a whole nother world, man. And, there's a million people I'd like to talk to, but someday maybe I'll cross paths with somebody that wants to get on here and talk about their thoughts about what's going on with that, because there's a lot. There's a lot happening with the environment when it comes to, you know, things that you wouldn't think about, but like the water levels and like you mentioned the coastline, the tides are rising. But like we went out on a charter trip. I was talking with my buddy last week, telling him about Paul Shermer. He's a charter captain on Ontario and Erie, and I was telling him about a trip. It was my first ever charter trip. We went out of Sodus, and that charter captain was just beside himself. He's captained a boat for a long, long time, and we didn't know him. We got talking with him. He was really frustrated. It was like middle of April, right around end of April, I think it was. We were fishing for browns, and like the fish were just they were off. Things were not happening the way that they normally are, and he was adamant that the water levels were messing with everything. So like it's interesting, but like I see you shaking your head because it's a huge body of water. There's temperatures, there's rainfall, there's all these different things that go into it. What are the streams doing? But I think it's like there's nothing that I love more about doing this podcast than talking to people who like make their living doing things and like what are they seeing in their day-to-day life? Because what you read in a paper or what you see in a report or whatever is one thing, but like when you talk to people that actually are out there living it and doing it, it's like, well, what are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And I find that to be incredibly valuable,
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I embrace those discussions and love kind of hearing people's insights on those things. But
yeah, let me answer Ben's question real quick. Ben, it is going to get turned over to the state. It'll all become Gale and WMA, but it'll be a few years. That won't happen until after we build the project. But yeah, pretty exciting. I know that's a nice little spot to hunt. They actually have some ag fields on that Galen property. I think they were in corn this year. The fields that we bought were soybeans this year, but it's a nice little corner there.
I think what's cool about what you guys are doing too is it's a long drawn out management plan. It's not buy something, try to do something quick with it and flip it, or just buy it and let it lay stagnant and see what happens. I mean, it looks like or sounds like what you guys are doing is really for the betterment in the future, not as, just grabbing something and holding on to it.
Yeah. I was just out near at the Tonawanda Wildlife Management Area the last couple of weeks. They started, I think, just before Christmas and worked for like 16 days straight almost. And like I was talking about before with that monoculture of just cattails in open water, they went out into the cattails with an excavator and actually dug some potholes. So there's 4 big potholes with channels that connect them all and connect them to the main open water part of that wetland cell. So it was kind of cool to see that too. Just all the excavated material got mounded up on the sides as habitat mounds. We threw a little wetland seed mix on there, hopefully being a little higher elevation. Those will take hold and have something other than cattail. Although cattails are definitely going to grow there. Cattails are just so persistent, I guess. I don't know the right word for it, but they take over.
Why am I drawn? Where is the Tonawanda? Where is that? I'm drawn.
It's like literally across the street from Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge.
Okay, yeah.
But to get back to what you were saying about the lake levels and all that, I don't know. I'm not going to touch on that either. I do try to stay pretty tuned in with the trout and salmon fishing on Lake Ontario. But there's definitely more to it than just the water levels. But you're right. With higher water levels brings a bunch of different scenarios. But sometimes people like to just pick the most prominent problem in front of them and run with it. There's actually the state's very interactive with those trout and salmon guys on Lake Ontario. They hold meetings. Like I know there's one in Rochester. They do it at I think it's called like the Genesee River Charter Association. Their meetings, like the state will come and give updates a couple times a year, or at least once a year, on the state of the lake. But yeah, everybody's got their issues.
Yeah, it's the Canadians, man. It's the freaking Canadians.
Right.
There's-
Like,
Oh, I
the
mean,
Canadians are harboring all the fish up there, apparently.
Yeah.
That's from what I've heard.
Yeah.
it's really no different than having an off deer season. You know, everybody's got their theory on it.
Yeah, exactly.
A guy that I work with loves to hunt brant, which when you think hunting brant, you think Long Island, you know, down on the coastline. And there's actually a pretty regular little migration of brant that come through like the Oswego area or across Lake Ontario. I don't know how wide it is, but he hunts them in Oswego. And he was watching like a website where you can go and birders will report all the, you know, species that they see wherever. And so it's a good way to kind of track the migration. And those brant just, they in the ducks, they just hung out on the north shore of Lake Ontario and just never crossed while our season was open.
No kidding.
It was like, what's going on, man? Why do they want to be over there and not over here? It's not like it's less wind blown or anything else, but
It's Google. It's Google. That's the only answer.
Yeah.
It's Google. Yep. The ducks have Google. They got Google Glass or something on there. The lead duck of the Flying V is up there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they're over there watching us. Stay over here." Yeah, who the hell knows? It is kind of fascinating. Nature's going to do nature things, and we're humans, and we think they're gonna, you know, like we overthink everything for sure. But
yeah, definitely.
My favorite part of the show. Ben says there's no deer out there, so don't even bother.
There isn't.
coming
There's
out
no
that way.
deer.
No
There's
deer.
No turkey.
Yeah, never seen a deer. Don't even know what a deer is.
Is there any trees I can shoot? I was pretty good at that last year too.
Yeah. No, I like to shoot, especially ones that are already dead. That's even more fun.
Don't shoot the ones that I end up planting there.
Okay.
That's all I care about.
Yeah, I prefer to shoot the bigger ones. Big Jim shoots the little ones. I'm curious from you two. I want to transition to like my favorite new segment, which is grinding your gears. But I'm curious from you two. Have either one of you guys listened to the show I did on Monday?
I did.
About the windmills?
Well, I shouldn't say I did. I'm like halfway through it.
Okay.
I got the gist of it.
No, Brian?
No, I purposely, you know, sitting here working, I listen to podcasts a lot, and I brought it up, and I went to hit play, and I said, I don't want to listen to it right now. Because quite honestly, man, before I worked at the Turkey Federation, a lot of my job was just building wind farms.
Oh, yeah?
And, well, I mean, it's doing the surveying portion of it, but, you know, that was it. Like, wind farms and FEMA floodplain studies was pretty, and there was also a big power line project in Rochester I was working on, but man, those wind farms were just brutal, like years. The one, if you drive down the throughway towards Pennsylvania, when you get to Fredonia, you can see some up on the hill there.
Yep.
That's the Arkwright wind farm. That's like, dude, I don't know. I worked on that thing for like 4 or 5 years, and like government funding would disappear, and they'd call you up and be like, can't work on it anymore, stop working on it. And then 6 months later, a year later, right after an election, they'd be like, all right, fire it up again. And you know, they eventually got it built, but it's ironically one of my mitigation sites is for that project now
Because of the credits?
Yeah, because they
Okay.
impacted wetlands building that wind farm, so they had to buy credits or build a bank, and I don't know the whole story, but yeah, somehow it ended up in DU's hands, and so we're building the bank for that project.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I was like, when they told me what it was, I was like, oh, that's right near. I did a lot of work on that Arkwright wind farm, and they were like, yeah, that's what this is for. And I was like, of course,
Yeah.
that wind farm's gonna haunt me.
Full
forever.
circle.
But,
Yeah.
So I can only imagine from the little bit, I don't know if you wrote like a description of it or whatever, but it sounds like are they proposing to build wind turbines in the lake?
Yeah.
Or along the lake?
In the lake.
In the lake.
Yeah. So this is it, and it's really interesting because I heard about this, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and then I started kind of thinking about it, and then I'm like, it all like took off real quick for me as far as getting involved in the discussion. But like I said, and you'll hear in the podcast, but this whole like renewable energy thing and electric it's very much in my life with my job. And I'm very in tune with it. I've been doing a lot of training classes, listening to a lot of, podcasts and presentations about electric powering things and vehicles and everything else. So, like, it's fascinating to me. And then all of a sudden this pops up on my radar, and I called my buddy Paul Shermer, who is also an HFL grad, and I asked him, because he's a charter captain, I said, is this like something that's on your guys' radar? This is where you work, you know? And he's like, oh, he goes, this is like a huge issue right now with our captain group. So he put me in touch with Jim Hanley, and Jim's a pretty cool guy. I didn't know anything about him. I guess his name sounded somewhat familiar, but I guess he's pretty well known in the fishing industry, like, you know, around the country. But I got him on, and we got talking about it, and this is like becoming a huge thing, and a lot of it's driven because of the governor, you know, her push and her statements about renewable energy and the state's, you know, very, very lofty goals, you know, with 2035 and 2030, 2035, all these kind of landmarks she put out. But, you know, this is raising a lot of people's dander, because this is the first ever, and I'm learning more about it because this is just further developing since I had this conversation Monday. This would be the first ever freshwater wind farm, like turbines in a fresh body of water that is a natural body of water, not a reservoir, not a, you know, a pond or a small, like, this is the first of its kind. And it just seems very fishy, is, I guess, the best I can say. Like, there's no, I mean, you talk about the work that you do. I mean, there's environmental impact studies. There's tons of research that's done before you can do anything. And this is like being pushed hard all of a sudden. And then, like, certain
it's not even all of a sudden, man. It's been getting pushed for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I guess there was a project, the Glow project, and that was what do they call it when they put a hold on something, like a stay, or essentially they put a stay on it for like 10 years, and now this is like resurfacing. But this has been kind of floated around, but now ever since like the first of the year, this is what our governor is like. She's running on this renewable energy, green energy, and we're like plowing forward with it. And it just seems like it is not being. So I'm going to shut up because I'm just keep talking. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on it.
I don't know how accurate the information I've got is on it, but I have questions about the longevity of these wind farms. Like, I'm sure you've seen it. You're surrounded by them where you live, but they have a shelf life. And you know, maybe it's just social media and media in general that maybe I'm misinformed, but, like, you know, these things that, you know, they're burying blades and parts, and, like, where does all that go? And is it really enough to power, you know, to provide enough power for what we need? I don't think it is. And, you know, side note, I laugh at these people that get like electric cars and stuff, and they're, you know, thinking about how much better the environment is, but they're charging their car with power that was created in a coal-fired plant too. You know, it's like, I'm probably too naive to really talk about it, but it's on my radar, and it like stresses me out, and that's why I didn't listen to it yet. I'm definitely going to listen to that because I'm curious to get that guy's take on it, but it's hard to know what to believe and what not to believe. You know, like you hear about, you know, I mean, solar and wind are like the big things, right? And, like, is there enough ways to store power from solar and wind to, like, yeah, I know that answer, right? Like,
yeah. It's not a constant power, so you have to have a place to store it when you're not producing it. And so, like, my mind just continues to get expanded on this. And it's what's very interesting is, so, like, I re-listened, our company, we sponsored a presentation back in the fall, and I re-listened to, and I'll send you guys the email, and just listen to the third piece of it, because it's talking about electricity as a fuel. And I'm gonna try to get the guy on here to talk about, you know, kind of, and have not so much like a formatted presentation, but talk about this stuff, because it's like, people have to take a step back and look at it. Even just the basic math, it doesn't add up. You can't physically do it. Like,
yeah,
if you were to add one vehicle to your household it's going to increase the power demand by 46% for your household. If most of us all have 2 vehicles in our household, that's going to double the power demand for just your house, let alone all the vehicles. And then what are you doing? You're getting rid of the most reliable power sources.
Well, then, I mean, you also think about it as well in the aspect of, you put batteries in just about everything you use. It's not plugged into the wall. So, how long does a battery in a drill gun last? How long is a battery in my car going to last?
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost me? What are you going to do with it? How do you recycle it? It's just a lot of questions. Like, they came out with that F-150 Lightning, and I got right on the wait list because I was like, that's freaking sweet. But then, the more you think about it, it's like, well, if I want to tow my snowmobile trailer from here to Vermont and go snowmobiling, I'm going to have to stop and charge it 4 times,
Right.
It's like, it could be handy, but it's not, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. I need to read up on it.
So, yeah, this is becoming a huge thing in my life, because I think that I think that people need to start. We have to stop being quiet. We have to start saying this doesn't make sense, like, because it doesn't. And I'm not gonna. It's freaking 10 o'clock. I'm not gonna get on a soapbox. But like, I really hope, like, the podcast has only been out for a few days, but it's already got a lot of downloads. And I really hope that, like, it kind of gets people thinking about all of this, and that I want to do more discussions like that about these things. And Jimbo, probably the person who signs both of our paychecks, texted me this morning about that podcast, and I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus, what's this going to be all about? He's like, dude, you're spot on with all of this. And I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy, because the guy that I trust with my life essentially is behind me on this. And he sent me a couple articles to read that I was like, we have to stop being quiet and just rolling over. I mean,
even just that whole, what grinds my gears about the podcast you just did. I mean, you're talking about the environment and habitat and all this stuff, and it's like, how in the F are you going to put those things out in that lake without disturbing that lake just hugely? I mean, you're going to have to dig trenches across it. You're going to have equipment in there. I mean, how the hell do you sink those things? I mean, you're going to be churning up all sorts of shit that's been buried in there for how long?
Yeah.
I mean, I just, from that aspect alone, I don't see how it even makes sense.
Well, and to kind of wrap this thing around and not go too deep on it in this discussion, but why I think it relates to you, Brian, is that they're talking about putting 50 turbines down the middle of Lake Erie. That's bird habitat. That I'm sure there's some sort of,
think the birds are going to fly into them.
Well, I mean, fly into them, or is it going to disrupt stuff? I mean, there's been other things that have derailed projects over, freaking birds flying into cables, or butterflies that can't do their migration corridor, So it's like, what are we, as I said it on that podcast, all of the conservation organizations that we all belong to, or that we work for, or whatever the situation is, if this stuff aligns with them, like, I feel like they need to be involved in this and say, whoa, this, like, we know there's a massive conservation organization in the Sierra Club that's behind this. Like, why are all the others that we belong to and we're members of, that say they want to protect the environment and do all this, like, why are they sitting back and being silent and letting this organization that, a lot of people view as the leading conservation organization not really maybe doing the best thing for the environment? That's my opinion. I'm speaking for me, not for you guys, but I don't know.
Sounds like where's the money coming from?
I mean, all that I can really say on the electric stuff, just from an aspect of fuels that run our society. I mean, I've been a mechanic for 15 years now. They've tried just about everything in these school buses, and still the most reliable thing is diesel. And no matter what, there's always something buzz. There's propane, there's gas, try to reduce emissions. No matter what you do, you always end up back at diesel as being the most reliable thing to use. And what they've done with it to this point to make it so it still meets EPA standards is, I mean, you can stand behind a diesel bus right now and it's not going to bother you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not putting that much more into the air than a gas engine. So
Yeah.
Can you guys get me one of those buses to use as a shuttle at my wedding?
Yeah. Oh no, I can't. Well,
come on, just get
I don't
the
know.
keys.
Where's your wedding?
This is the south end, just south of Canisius Lake.
Oh, we got a guy for you.
We do got a guy, fat-headed Larry. Yeah, we'll get
Larry.
you. Call. You'll have the best wedding bus you'll ever have in your life. If you call S&S Limousine in Leroy and request Larry, and if you get Larry was my wedding driver. Did he drive for you, Jim?
I don't remember.
No, you didn't have to. We didn't go anywhere.
I was right at the hotel.
Larry drove for us. So Larry's he's the head mechanic at York, and so Jimmy and I know him really well. And so he came, roughly where I live, Brian, and we got married in Bennington, and then the wedding reception was in Batavia. And he took us from Bennington to Varysburg to Attica to Batavia. We had to stop in Attica to get more beer because we drank all the beer. Oh my God. It was the best. He was such a great driver. It was such a good time. So yeah, we got a guy. If you need somebody, you don't want a school bus. Nobody wants the school bus to transport.
Dude, right now I'm signed up with RTS.
Ooh, nice. They'll put you in the restraints and everything to keep you strapped down.
Well, the thing is with them, because they're a public entity, like so many days beforehand, they have to put it out there, and then somebody like S&S can say, no, I want that contract. If they say they want it, then RTS has to drop it, and they can't do it. And then they don't have to honor the price either. So then now I'm back to paying double what I would have paid, and I just can't use it because they said they want to do it.
Yeah.
But I'll figure it out.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
Enjoy the planning a wedding.
It is. I'm glad I don't have to do that again, hopefully.
It's not that bad.
If I don't wrap this up, I probably will have to get married again. Yeah. You got anything in closing? Either one of you guys?
How many days?
I'm good.
How many days till turkey season?
Oh man.
Not many. It's not that long.
Itching.
Dude, that's Noble's Miriam's that when we doubled in Colorado.
Oh, no kidding. That's a beautiful. That's a beautiful mount.
I just did the tail. It's it's behind my computer here on the wall. But after seeing that one, the dude that did that is over in Scipio, Josh Seville, I think. Dude, that's the best turkey mount I've ever seen.
Yeah, that thing's gorgeous.
Noble asked me to go pick it up for him, so it gets to hang out on my wall for a little bit.
Yeah,
that's super realistic. Like my uncle Tim got one done, and it's nice, but I don't know if I like the way like the neck and head turned out. It wasn't like super realistic. I don't feel like.
I've seen a lot, and Callie Morris is like the most well-known turkey taxidermist. His are unbelievable. This dude's right up there. Like, that's the most realistic head that I've seen in a long time. And, makes me a little jealous. But the longer he procrastinates getting up here, the longer it gets to hang out on my wall. So I'm cool with it.
Well, let's make it a point to get we'll get you and Noble and Big Jim on again as we get maybe like mid-April or something closer to turkey season. Yeah. Do a little turkey talk.
Well, mid-April he'll be hunting. He's
that's true.
Texas and Tennessee and a bunch of other places.
Well, maybe we'll do it a little bit.
We can get him on in his car, sitting in the parking area somewhere.
Yeah.
You're probably better off. He probably has better service driving across the country than he does sitting in his house.
Yeah, true that. Well, but it's been.
How about we get together and do some turkey hunting this spring?
Yeah,
we should.
Yeah, that'd be fair. Yeah, I mean, if I can get out more than twice, I think I hunted twice all year last year, so. If I can get out more, absolutely. If it doesn't snow on opening day, that would be nice.
Man, that was brutal.
That was brutal.
Killed turkeys in the snow.
Yeah,
I was hungover as shit that day.
Yeah, we had a good time the night before.
That's your own fault.
It's our own fault, but guess what? The turkeys weren't talking, so no loss there. We had a good time.
It's easier to sit on a slightly cold day with a hangover than it is when it's 75 degrees out and you're trying to hike everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I know we're trying to wrap it up, but my dad got us some Cuddy Link cameras this year, so looking forward to deploying those things and using them for turkey season. That's going to be pretty exciting.
That will be fun.
I got to get down to camp and get our system running right.
Yeah, the cold weather ain't good on it.
Well, I think they're probably more yarded up around where Mike's cutting trees too, and we're just not where the action is. So
if there's a chainsaw being used right now, you should probably put the cameras where those are.
Yeah.
Where is he cutting?
I'm not sure. I haven't been up there. I gotta get down there.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know where he's. I mean, I'm sure he's continuing his path up the hill, but
I know we had a lot down over on the south side of our property already, but that's probably buried in snow now. So maybe he's dropping new stuff. I don't know.
You know, it's a lot more fun to go up there and watch him drop like just massive trees all day long than to go out and do what we're doing on the farm and cutting freaking honeysuckle and buckthorn and dead ash, and then it's all tangled up in one freaking pile, and then you got to drag it all. It's just a pain in the ass. It's just a royal pain in the ass. But
I had my buddy come over last weekend and just before the snow and cut a dead ash tree down that was like right next to my house. And I told him, like, dude, just drop it for me and I'll clean it up later. So we hung out Saturday, Sunday morning. He drove home and I was out there racing to limb it up and get all the brush dragged off before the snow came. I called him then and I was like, dude, you don't pay your ground guys enough work, because he's an arborist. Like, whatever you're paying them, it's not enough. That job sucks, dragging brush around.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't even imagine what my cleanup's going to look like when the snow melts and all the tiny little branches that explode everywhere when it hits the ground.
Yeah.
I had like a freaking 60-year-old pine tree dropped off the back corner of my garage when I moved in here, and I just had him drop it and I cleaned it up. It was just forever picking shit up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many and I don't know if you pay attention to it when you start driving out tomorrow if you haven't recognized it. How many ash trees snapped off from those windstorms? I'm guessing that we had back in December. Those crazy winds, those couple times. There's so many ash trees like on our property that are they sheared off halfway up the tree, just broke right in half.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why I had him cut this one. It was dead when I bought the house, so I don't know how long it was dead. And every time it was windy, I was like, please don't land on the house. So, I don't need one more thing to deal with. And luckily when we cut it down, like, it was definitely dropping limbs, but the main stem was pretty solid. I think it would have been fine for a few more years, but I sleep a lot better knowing that I don't have to worry about it anymore.
For sure. All right. Well, I appreciate you jumping on, Brian. It's great catching up with you, buddy.
Yeah,
and
no problem. It's good talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Good catching up.
Just closing out, everybody head over to the website, pertneroutdoors.com, and get your Shedfest t-shirt to get entered in. And we should have the shirts here in the next few weeks. And well, I'm not going to set a date like that, but pretty quickly we'll be getting the shirts. They are ordered. They are should be coming in any time. And then we'll be just starting to ship them out. So get your shirt ordered. And I'm interested in people's feedback. I haven't gotten a ton of feedback. I know there's been a lot of downloads of that episode from Monday about the wind turbines, and I'm just curious. I'm interested if people like those discussions, if they want more like insight and stuff like we talked about tonight. Like I want to, that stuff is very interesting to me, and I want to put more content out about that. But if people don't like it, then I'm not gonna. But I have a feeling that people will find it interesting. So give me your feedback.
I got to drive all the way up to Messina in the morning. I'm leaving my house at like 4:30, so I'll tune in while I'm driving.
Yeah, sounds good. I expect your feedback, honest feedback.
You'll like this. I have to go up there to burn deer blinds down.
What? Wooden deer blinds?
Yeah, there's 3 deer blinds on this property. I'm assuming we're turning it over to a land trust or something. We're at that stage and they don't want any structures. So whatever reason, I got to go up there and knock these deer blinds down. It's gonna hurt a little bit.
Molotov cocktails, grenades.
You want a trailer, and you can just like cut them and lean them into the trailer and bring them back for us.
They're probably not in good enough shape to stand there.
Are they like some of those tree stands from the fucked up old tree stand thing from Meat Eater? They like some of those plywood.
They're not the hunt work quality blinds.
No, probably not. But yeah, I'll tune in while I'm driving.
All right, boys.
All right.
Thank you much. Thanks everybody that tuned in, and keep fading them.
Feed them.
See you guys.
See ya.
See ya.